Hey everyone, welcome back to Mr. Phone Doctor. Today we have another repair tutorial for you, and this time we're tackling the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra. If you have any questions on equipment, training, or need a screen repair, feel free to contact me by visiting MrPhoneDoctor.com. Let's jump right in. So first things, you always want to make sure that the screen does have full working touch, and to do so, we just go into our dialer, which is *#0*#. Once you're in here, we can just choose touch, and we can test everything. Now keep in mind, if you attempt getting into the dialer with the Verizon phone, it won't work. So this is the screen that we will be refurbing. It does have a pretty large impact point right here. This is what we call a bruise or a dead pixel. This is where the screen took majority of the hit. Luckily, the screen didn't go out, so it is still working. And if you notice, there's a small little bleed as well right here on its right side. So we need to be careful when we're going through with the line and removing the pieces of glass on this side. Our next step is we will need to make a insertion point. And insertion points are just areas where we can get our line through and begin cutting off the glass. To do so, we will be using our spindle tool, which we have here, and we like to hit the edge of the glass right before the OLED. So if you notice, there's a little black area right before the OLED. That's where we're going to score, and hopefully we get a nice even break. Alright, so we like to do this with the display on so we can confirm and make sure that we don't cause any kind of blemishes or kill the screen. So I will start hitting the screen. Very gently. There we go. So you can see how we made the little cracks right there on that corner. Next we have to do the other side. Same thing, okay? And that one broke beautifully. Take a peek there, you can see how that crack just broke right where we needed it to. Right on that notch, so we can feed our line in on that section. So it doesn't really take much, okay? So just nice little scoring until you see the glass crack, and that's all you need to do. Next, we want to set our screen onto our heating plate. This is the Forward 361 Max, and we have this running at a temperature of 120 degrees Celsius. Once it's up to temperature and it feels nice and warm, we do like to use these OCA pull-away cards that are revealed whenever we're laminating, so make sure you save these, they come in handy. We would just like to cut a small little square or rectangle so we can go in here and scrape off the broken glass that we ended up cracking. And we will need to use a little bit of ISO 99 for this procedure, okay? Let's put a little bit of ISO on the corner where we cracked. And if you notice, I will be going with the clear card and scraping the area that we broke. And you'll see it wiggle and begin to move. Now the key is you don't ever want to go in and lift it, because these shards of glass will actually damage your OLED panel, okay? So you need to be very careful when you're doing this step. And we just want to push away this glass piece that is there. We'll continue to push it, slide it off, add a little bit more ISO. There we go, and there. Now we have that piece of glass removed. I do want to brush with some ISO 99 any kind of little shards that may have been left behind. Alright, so next up we need to do our other side. A little bit of ISO, and we will just slowly get this card in there. See that? You just push the glass. You don't want to force it too much, and keep the glass, or keep the card flat, so you can just dislodge it all in one piece. See that? Just like that. So now we have a clean starting point. So what I'll do is I will pick either the left or right side to get the line going, and it looks like this left side is a lot more open than this right side. So what I'll do is I'm going to start here just by observing the screen. So I'm going to cut this down to size so we have a little square, and we will put this square right in here underneath the glass, just so we can shim the wire right under it. You want to be careful when you're doing this. You don't want to put a lot of force. You just want this to go there. And you know what? I'm actually going to go up on top here because I don't want to put a lot of strain on this corner or this edge, because the edges don't have any kind of barrier behind them, so it may fold and cause lines. So let's be safe, and we'll start from right on top here. And you want to just feed in the card a little at a time. You don't want to force it in there, okay? There we go. Next up, we will introduce our mulling line. I always like to make sure that whatever side of screen I'm cutting, the spool is on that side. So since we're going to be cutting this left side, the spool is going to be in my left hand. Reason being is because we like to feed the line. As we're cutting, we don't like to saw back and forth. We like to just pull and get a fresh line. That way we don't have any curly cues going in and digging into the polarizer. So to get started, we're going to go with our line and get underneath that card that we put. And you always want to make sure the line overlaps the OLED. So you can see how there the line is over the OLED safely. And then I can go with my right hand and just begin to move it underneath that card that we created. And there, so that part is inserted. Now a little tricky part that we have to do is we can remove this, and we like to hammer the line underneath this shard, especially if you have cracks that are going up against the line. We need to find a little shim to push them down. So what I'm doing is I'm just gonna go with this card and press it down. And as I'm pressing it down, I'm gonna tug the line down a little bit so we can feed it. Now we have our line inserted and everything's ready to rock and roll. Now with these screens, you want to be careful that you're cutting a little bit at a time. You don't want to cut too much. If you do too steep of cuts, you'll end up causing tension, and then you can cause the polarizer to get damaged, or you can cause lines. So as you're cutting, you want to loosen with one hand and cut with another. So if I'm going to cut this top area, I'm going to loosen my left hand. So see how my left hand is going to pull the line out, and then my right hand is going to be going to the right side, and it's going to be doing the cut like so. There we go. Now I'm going to pull my right hand up on top and begin cutting down on the left edge very gently. And I like to just use my hand so I can just wind up the slack and pull a fresh line throughout this process. So as you're cutting, you're just cutting little sections at a time, and you're moving your hand to relieve the tension as you need to. I'm going to wind it up, get some fresh line. There we go. Alright, and then we will loosen, and we'll begin cutting on the top side and continue. And you want to continue this until we have a little peak, and make sure that you don't have too big of a peak because it will cause tension. And as you're cutting, you always want to observe the screen. If you see any discoloration, you may have hit the polarizer, so I recommend you abort. And I'm going to go here all the way to the corner. There we go, perfect. And then I will remove the line carefully. So now that we have this left side started, we can continue on the other side. And I'll rotate this plate down towards me. Now remember, I'll be cutting this left side, so spool will be on my left hand. I'm gonna add a little bit of ISO, and we're gonna get our starting point here with the card, and we will go on top of the OLED. So you can see how these breaks are going, and they're overlapping the OLED right here. We will need to come in on this edge, and then we'll loop our line around towards the bottom, and then we'll use the same technique where we get a card, and then we just hammer that card down right here on the edge so it gets underneath that little snaggle tooth that's sticking out there. Okay, get our line in carefully. Alright, now the line is up on that corner. Alright, let's get this. Now we're gonna get our card, and then we will hammer this wire gently right there. Now moving with my left hand down towards the bottom of the phone so we can feed that line through like so. And that's it. We don't want to continue tugging or pulling or anything. Now I will remove the line, and we can begin our cutting. There we go. And I'm pulling with my right hand and feeding fresh line. Now anytime you hit a bunch of shards or cracks on the edges, you just want to be mindful of those. Nice and easy. You can see the line just going. And as you're cutting, you want to observe, make sure you don't see any brown or discoloration on the end that is going through the glass. And we're getting stuck. Anytime you feel tension, abort. So if you notice here, we are cutting in little hilltops. You want to create little peaks, and then we want to break the peak. You don't want to go too deep with the peaks, because we do the tension. We don't want tension, so we build a peak, and then we cut the peak about a little ways so that way the edges are still clear. Okay, we are good there. I'm gonna try to clear some of these guys out so that way we don't have any issues with them feeding the line back in. A little bit of ISO, a toothbrush, just kind of push these guys out. You can use tweezers as well, just careful using any kind of tweezers, metal objects on the OLED. You don't want to hit the OLED. So we can continue our cutting, and there we go, and that's good. Okay, so we're gonna pull gently. Then we'll have to cut the line because this is going to get messy. Now that we have all these shards opened up here, they will end up bouncing around on us. So cut the line and then pull the line out carefully. Now if you want, you can remove all these little shards so they don't cause issues later on down the road. Just add a little bit of ISO there. Now we can continue. We'll cut this other side. All right, so we will spool with our left side, left-handed, and we will continue our procedure. Nice and easy. All right, not too much tension. I'm going to continue building the peak. Alright, so that's good. So we're at a good stopping point there. Remove the line and we will start to cut the other side. So we'll go in and just pay attention. Left hand is in spool duty. Let's remove the line. So I got stuck on these little shards down here. Add a little bit of ISO to help soften this. And then we can remove these little pieces that I'm getting stuck on. And you never lift up on the glass. You want to just pull away and go away from the screen. You don't want one of these little crystals that go in there and kill your OLED. Okay, good. Let's go back to the other side. I'm going to rotate my plate. Let's continue our cutting. Alright, so once you get near the bottom, the trick is going to be to rotate your hand over across the bottom of the screen. Let me show you. So you can see we're near the bottom. So my left hand is going to be going across here to the right side of the display. You want to make sure that this line gets to the corner first. Once you get to the corner, you can elevate your line. This is going to be one of the only times where you have your line elevated. So I have it elevated slightly just so that line can go up and cut up against the screen. And you have to jump these little gray antenna bars. There's some little bars on here that I'm not really too sure what they are, but you can see that there's little pieces of plastic, these two pieces. So if you have your line straight out like so, you'll end up clipping on those and your line won't go. So you want to make sure you keep it elevated and jump those. And if it's tight, then we're stuck on it. So you want to try to jump carefully. There we go. See that? And you do want to cut sections, so I'm going to relieve the tension on this right hand. So we just cut a little at a time and continue killing that heel. There we go. We're almost done. And that's it. Line is removed and the glass has been cut successfully. So I do like to add a little bit of ISO on the screen to help remove it. So we'll add a little bit of ISO down here in the bottom. Get any little shards out of here so they don't dig in if you can. It looks like this is all coming out in one. Anytime you dislodge it, you always want to push down towards the bottom of the phone. Okay, so we're going to lift up and just wiggle. You never want to lift towards you because you can drag anything and drag little pieces into the flex there. So that's it. We have a nice broken piece. We can remove this, let it cool down, and we will give it a test. So our final step in this procedure is, of course, to test. And of course, you want to observe, make sure that we didn't have any other imperfections or blemishes show up after removing the glass. But here you can see that everything is working properly. So that wraps up the first step in refurbishing your S22 Ultra. Some key things to remember is when you are cutting, make sure that you are cutting little sections at a time and that you're not causing too much tension on your edges. Another key thing is always make sure that whatever side you're cutting, you have your spool on that hand and you're feeding the line through with your opposite hand. Okay, never cut going down towards the edge because that creates tension. You'll end up causing lines or even digging into the polarizer. Let's begin cleaning the Oka from the OLED panel. Now we're going to use the same temperature that we used in cutting the glass, which is going to be 120 degrees Celsius, okay? We will be using our spindle tool and of course our Forward 361 Max. Now the key thing when you're using the spindle is you only want to focus on areas that have a lot of OCA built in on there. You can see the difference by the color of it and of course by the texture if you touch it. Here it's pretty tacky versus this smooth area where there's no OCA. Now, whenever you're using the spindle tool, you always want to make sure that the spindle tool is rotating up and away from the OLED. So if we are going to be cleaning the OLED panel forward, I want the spindle to be working up and away. If I'm working downward, then I want to make sure the OLED spindle is rotating up and away from the OLED. So that's going to be clockwise. Up is counterclockwise, down is clockwise. Otherwise, your spindle will just end up hitting and turning and causing too much force onto your display panel. And you only want to use the edge of it, okay? You don't want to use this needle tip at this angle. Make sure you keep the spindle flat and little sections at a time, okay? Just like that. And you always want to make sure that you're starting the spindle before you hit the OLED. If you have the spindle tool resting on top of the Oka like so and start it, it's going to end up kicking because it's going to get stuck to the Oka. So don't do that. Make sure you have it spinning mid-air like so, and then we rotate. See that? Alright, so we got that section. I'm going to continue on and continue cleaning this lower area. So that channel's clean. Let's rotate and hit the bottom of the display panel. And you always want to be very cautious when you're hitting near the bottom of the display panel. I like to refrain from working downwards like so, just in case you accidentally get resistance, you won't pull back and accidentally hit this OLED panel, or excuse me, hit the flex. This is your most critical area, this gold flex on the bottom, so you want to be very careful. So what I recommend is to work this area left to right like so. That way if you do have any kickback, you're going to go forward and you won't end up slipping and going into that channel causing damage to the flex. So you want to get a little bit here, you do want to get a little bit of buildup, and you want to keep that buildup on the tip because it's going to help you whenever you're getting down on this edge. Since the OLED panel sitting below the frame bezel, this will help pick all that stuff up. See that? There we go. So I'll clean it there. Just resting the spindle on there. You don't want to push down too hard with the needle, okay? It should just slowly grab up on that section with the little ball that you build on the spindle. And that's it. See that? Now we can remove it and we can get this last little section. And if for any reason, if you feel that this tool is too quick for you, you can always use your index finger here to slow it down. If you press it, this does have 4 different speeds. It is on the slowest, but the slowest sometimes is a little too quick, especially on iPhone screens. So you can just throttle it down by using your finger. And that's it. So if you notice, you can see majority of the screen has all the big lumps of Oka removed. So our next step will be to ISO. We can soak these screens, it is safe to soak them. We'll just use some ISO on them, and then we'll use our cleaning sponge. Nice and gently, just go through and clean away any kind of streaks that were left behind. And when you get to the flex, you want to work left to right as well. And you can continuously soak it if you like, just to keep the ISO on the Oka and help remove it. So I'm just squirting as I need to and just working vigorously back and forth to remove these big clumps of glue. You want to make sure this is fully clean, so when we go to the laminating station, it's ready for glass. And if for any reason you have any big clumps there, you can always introduce a clear OCA sheet, the waste paper, and just end up scraping these little guys off. Like so. This just helps get all these last minute little residues out. Good thing with these Samsung screens is they're pretty resilient. You know, unless you poke them, you can lose them. But as far as cleaning goes, you can put a good amount of pressure on here and they still hold up strong. Alright, it's looking good. Let's go through with our clean cloth and we will go through and do our final pass through. After we have the OLED clean, we do need to separate it from the frame. Now for this procedure, we will be using our card, but first, we always want to make sure we clean out the channel. I like cleaning this channel out because if there's any kind of shards or debris and stuff that got in there, this will prevent us going through with our card and end up tearing and damaging the OLED. So we're going to put a little bit of ISO 99 here. I'll start from the middle and work my way out so we're not dragging anything across it. Just like so. You can see all the crud and crime coming out of here. You might even at times see some shards of glass come out. So this is very, very important, okay? Don't just start jamming your clear card in there and start separating the screen. I recommend cleaning this channel out. Next up, we have the frame separating. So for this step, what I recommend doing is using this card, and you do want to go in at an angle. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're in the channel and underneath the OLED. So what we need to do is we'll just go in here, add a little bit of ISO, and we will go at an angle and just start sliding the card left to right until you get underneath that adhesive. And you'll know you're under it because you can feel it. We are under that adhesive there, which is perfect. And for those of you out there, I do recommend using another display as a reference point, okay? So that way when you're going with your card, you know exactly what areas to be critical and careful for. So you can see if we turn it over, we have our S Pen flex right here. Then we have our fingerprint sensor and of course our main flex down on the bottom area. If you don't have one of these, just pull one up online and have it on your phone, okay? Once you have that, we can just begin slicing this card. We'll just go through and just very gently tear through the frame tape left to right and keeping the ISO on there so that way we can get a nice little removal. ISO works wonders in this. Alright, now we can do this side. Remember, we have the S Pen flex here. You're going to be very careful. Keep this card with ISO on it. Let's go ahead and run up across on top and tear this top section off. You can see how I'm just sawing little gestures at a time. Always keeping this card flat. You never want to lift it, okay? Perfect. So now the OLED is starting to lift. Now once you get this frame tape removed around this top section and the edges, but if you look at an angle, you'll see the little pads there. Those are adhering the OLED to the back of the screen. So what we need to do is we're going to need to create another shim and we're going to end up cutting these pads off. And this one might be a little, I could probably work it. We're going to go a little at a time. So I'm going to just cut a little slither and then we will insert this card. So now we need to gently saw these little pads off. Okay, so we're going to just, and as you're doing this, you can see where the card is cutting. So just keep an eye and just want to go through very gently. So you want to be careful when you get to this area where the fingerprint sensor is, because sometimes you may actually go in underneath this flex and end up tearing it. So just be very careful. If you feel anything kind of tight, then stop, because you're probably hitting the flex. I'm gonna drop the temperature down to 70 because we do need to clean the back of the OLED and prepare it for lamination. So to dislodge this, you can simply press right here where the flex is attached. Give it a press and just take a peek inside here and make sure that everything looks nice and separated. It should come off very easy. And you never want to just pull out, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of pull and tug down with it. There we go, like so. And we have safely removed it from the panel. So next up we want to clean the OLED. So to clean the back of the frame, very simple. I recommend finding a good point where there's nothing attached, so you can see we have an opening here on these lower areas. Now I like to use my bare hand for this, that way I can feel and have a little more precision going through so I don't hit the flex and damage it. So we're gonna just start to roll. You never want to use a nail, okay? A nail will kill it. Keep rolling until you get a little curly cue started, and once you have it we can just continue rolling and always keep the OLED held down, and we can just pull it. See that? Pull. There we go, and that's it. Bam. Easy peasy. Now we clean the back of the OLED. And you do want to be careful when using the alcohol in the back not to get these IC chips soaked, because those can short. There we have her. She's a beauty. Now we can reveal it. There we have her. Pretty screen here. Now the final step, of course, is you want to always make sure that it's working. So we'll boot it up to the tester and confirm that everything looks the same. But you can see touch and everything is working like a charm. That is it. Beautiful screen, ready for glass. Let's begin the final and most satisfying part in the refurbishing process, which is laminating. Now in the laminating process, we like to use the Super Light Max, and I like to use this little Refox DF40 workbench cleaner. This guy is portable, but has been working very well for us in keeping all the dust and debris out during laminating. Let's begin. Now we always want to make sure that we do wear gloves during this process. Our hands do have a lot of dust and debris and stuff that does accidentally fall in there, so always make sure you have a clean set of gloves. Now we recommend using the San branded glass only for any curved screens, okay? Anything else, I'm sorry, you're gonna end up beating yourself over and over because they are very, very poor quality and you get a lot of bubbles. So we've been having some tremendous luck with this glass. Alright, so we want to make sure we clean the OLED once again. This is our final detail clean. Make sure that we have all the residue off. Any kind of specks or oka that remained, we want to get all these guys out, okay? Alright, once you have your clean OLED ready, and this does take training your eye, okay? So it may take you a lot of tries to finally figure out that there's nothing on the screen. Alright, there we go. Now it's looking good. So I'm going to set this on its side. I'll have it propped like so. Okay, so nothing falls on it. We do want to prep the glass. Always make sure you clean your glass, okay? I will put a pull tab on the new glass so the reveal is nice and easy for me. So make sure you reveal with the glass face down so nothing falls on there. I'm going to reveal, pull the sheet away. We're going to grab the OLED with our right hand and we're going to line it. And as we're going, we're going to turn it so we can see. Now what I'm doing here is I'm aligning the camera punch with the new glass, okay? You want to make sure that the punch of the OLED panel lines up as perfect as you can, okay? You don't want to have it cockeyed, you don't want to have it too high, too low. Otherwise, when you're installing, you may cause damage to the OLED. See that? So I just set it there like so. And the good thing about these curved OLEDs, or the curved glass, is that the OLED sits on that channel. If you ever need to reapply or move, you can go ahead and lift the OLED and adjust as you need to. But this looks pretty good. No specks, and our dust cleaner did a great job here. Now you do want to do one press in the middle, like so, and that's all you need. We can now introduce the screen into our laminator, the Super Light, and I recommend using these pre-designated molds. These are all cut out precisely for each series of Samsung. I know you can try to hand cut them, but I don't recommend that. If you cut it too short, it's not going to laminate properly. So get these laser cut molds. You can find them online. We have them on our website, so there's multiple sources where you can purchase these. Now, whenever you are aligning this OLED, you want to make sure that this mold sits right below the flex and it is hitting on the corners. As it presses, the mold expands. So you can see how I have it set up and aligned right there. Now, that's a good alignment. We'll set this in our laminator, make sure it didn't move on us. Close our lid. And the beautiful part is one touch does all. You don't need to change any presets or anything. So right now I have the vacuum set at 35 seconds and the laminate is at 25 seconds. So we can press start and that'll engage. So we can wait a few minutes, let this get up to our parameters. There it goes, airbag has engaged, and you can see a lot of our bubbles are beginning to disappear. And voila, just like that, we're done. And here is the finished lamination. You can see there's a few little bubbles, one here, see, and then one right here in the middle. But other than that, this is a beautiful lamination. Really, really good. Now, in order to get rid of these bubbles, we do need to introduce the screen into the autoclave, which is almost the final step. We do have our B2 Plus autoclave, which has a built-in compressor. This little guy works great. Got a compressor built in, so you don't need to attach any kind of external compressor. So we'll set our screen inside here. Turn on our machine. Double tap, and if we do want to change the time, which on curved screens I recommend doing a debubble for 10 minutes. So we're going to change this to 10 minutes. 10 minutes is on. We'll double press this. And now we wait. We will cut back in 10 minutes after the debubbling has finished. Autoclaving has finished. Let's reveal our finished masterpiece. Ooh, look how pretty. See, here's the finished product after laminating. Now, of course, we do need to test it, make sure everything is still 100% functional. And there we have it. You can see that the touch and everything is still fully working. And we also have a bubble-free lamination. Bubble-free and wave-free, no waving. Now, of course, the final step in this is to cure this for about 120 seconds in a UV light. I don't have a UV light here next to me. That would be the final step on this, to harden the OCA so that way you don't have any kind of return or delay bubbles appear on the edges. Now that's going to wrap up my S22 Ultra series repair. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys are enjoying these series of repairs, please make sure you let me know. And if there's any other devices out there that you do want to see in general, please let me know as well. I'll be more than happy to make videos catered to you all. So happy learning, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Cheers.